At the end of last year, I was in Berlin. I was there to talk about global food security. I was in a conversation with engineers, with scientists, professors, farmers, students even from all across the globe. And the question that everybody was there to answer, or to try and answer, was how are we going to feed the 9 billion people that will be on the planet by 2050? Some folks talked about agriculture, urban, sustainable, new innovations in farming. People talked about city planning, community planning. All across the board, new ideas, certainly synthetic and modified products and the controversies that surround that. Needless to say, it was an incredibly challenging and thought-provoking discussion. And then it was my turn. I had no science to present. I had no new farming techniques. I was there to present the very simple and fundamental principle and belief that food is a right, not a privilege. I was there then, and I'm here now to talk about food rescue. Food rescue, or food recovery as it's often called, is the upcycling of good, edible food that has lost its marketable or saleable value up into the social service stream. We've been hearing so much about our global food supply and the subsequent trashing of it lately. We're reading things like, as a globe, we're trashing 1.3 billion tons of food per year. That's over a third of what we globally produce. I had no idea that that was happening. I didn't know much about our food supply, the trashing of it, or what to do about it. What I did know was that when I was a little girl, my family and I used to travel. We traveled to New York, we traveled to California, across the country. And wherever we went, we stayed in a hotel, but we always took our leftovers. Took them from restaurants, not because we were bringing them back to the room. I just thought that everybody did this. Took it, and as we were leaving the restaurant, we would set it on the side of the street next to a trash can. And I just thought that this was commonplace. Everybody did it. On one particular occasion in New York, we were at the Carnegie Deli, family favorite. Epic portions of food. Nobody can finish anything there. As we did, left the food side of the trash can. I'm walking down 7th Avenue, and for no particular reason, I happened just to look back, and at that moment, I saw somebody pick up one of our bags and start eating right there. I had no idea if it was this person's first meal of the day or their last, when the last time they ate was, or when the next time they would eat. All I knew was that suddenly there was a very simple and very neon explanation for why we did this. Fast forward to 2009. I'm having lunch again, and I'm sitting at the table. It's over the holidays, right? And I think we all know that holiday season now seems a lot like charity season. We're sort of inundated with charitable asks throughout the entire time. It's always, there's not enough. It's the message of there's not enough. There's not enough toys, there's not enough clothing, not enough money, and certainly not enough food. So give what you can. You have to give what you can. And for a split second, I'm sitting at the table, and there's all this food that we hadn't even touched, not to mention our leftovers, food that we hadn't even eaten yet. And for a split second, I thought, I can't be the only one at the only table in the only restaurant in the only town, not just with enough, but with more than enough. And it was enough probably to feed 5 or 6 people. Couldn't stop thinking about it. I went home and I actually Googled what happens to wasted food. I didn't even know enough how to formulate that thought. Have you ever thought that? What happens to all that food out there? There's so much, whether it's on the plate, at home, and I couldn't figure it out. And I learned about food rescue. And the things that I learned, aside from those global statistics, in this country, we're wasting over 40% of what we produce. That's over 100 billion pounds of food each year. All of that while almost 50 million Americans don't know where their next meal is coming from. 16 million of them are children. If you can picture the Rose Bowl, 95,000 plus seat arena, fill it with fresh food every day, light it on fire. That's the rate that we're wasting food. That gasp, I had the exact same one. It's the most unnecessary and preventable problem that we've got. Beyond missing an opportunity to feed folks with this food, the environmental consequences of food waste are major and they're significant. It's the largest single solid source in our waste stream. It's eating up a quarter of our global freshwater supply, 300 million barrels of oil to produce and then incinerate this food. And on top of that, the methane and CO2 emissions that are coming from all of that rotting food in a landfill. The financial costs that we're talking about, costs over $1 billion to incinerate this food, and the retail value is almost $200 billion, all because we're throwing it away. So I'm reading all of this online, and all of these numbers are so huge. They're so huge. And I had to know what we were talking about. Are we talking about food that had already spoiled? Are we talking about food that was rotten? Food that was expired? I had to see. So I get in my car, I drive down to the supermarket in Coolidge Corner, and I knock on the back door. And the guy comes to the back door, and he said, "The front is over there." And I said, "No, I know. Can I see what you're gonna throw away?" And he said, "Are you a cop?" And I said, "No." He said, "Are you a journalist?" I said, "No." He said, "No, you got to get out of here." And I said, I just need to look. I'm reading all this stuff online. I can't tell if it's hyperbole. I got to see it. I got to see what we're talking about here, all this wasted food. In the meantime, the guy's pulling his hair out, and he's like, "Please, get out of here." And he said, "Fine, it's over there. Take a look, and then go." I saw pallets of potatoes, eggplants, onions, bananas that were a little bit bruised, freckled, apples that were bruised. Imperfect? Sure. Blemished? A little bit. Bad? No. Stuff that I would eat. Stuff that you'd find at a farmer's market. Nothing was bad, nothing was rotten, nothing was inspired. Meanwhile, he's like, "Okay, your time's up, get out." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. Can I have it?" And he said, "Oh, dear God. Just go." And I said, "Can I have this?" And he said, "Why?" And I said, "I don't know, but don't you think there's something better for us to do than throw it out?" He said, "Are you gonna leave?" I said, "I promise." So a few minutes later, I'm sitting in the parking lot with my car literally full of fresh produce. And I'm like, okay. So that happened. And my brain does not move that fast, right? But you don't have to be somebody to do something. You just need an idea. And this one could not come to me literally fast enough. And I remembered when I was a kid, I had volunteered at a soup kitchen downtown. So I plugged it in to my phone. I wasn't driving yet. Pulled up the address. And a few minutes later, I was driving to the south end of Boston. I get there. I knock on the back door. Guy opens, said, "Can I help you?" I said, "I have some food to donate." He hands me a milk crate. I knock on the door again, and he comes back. And I said, "If you have a couple of extra guys and like 100 milk crates, that'd be great." And he said, "How much do you have?" A couple of minutes later, Jack and I were standing outside my car talking about his organization's incredible need for fresh, healthy food, how sourcing it and finding it is one of their most difficult and most expensive challenges. And he said, "How much do you want for it?" I said, "I didn't pay anything for it. Take it." And at that moment, I thought, well, that couldn't have been the only store in the only town with all this food, and this can't be the only soup kitchen in the only town that needs it. So this goes on for a few more days, a few more stores. I convinced the guy at the other store, brought him some coffee, and he let me back a couple of times. And after about a week, Jack says, "I don't mean to be rude, but don't you have anything better to do?" And I looked at him and I said, you know what? I think this is it. And the more we talked, the more I could see that the way that we approach hunger in this country is so siloed. We need to be able to talk about politics. We have to be able to talk about living wage. We have to be able to talk about the food system and all of the things that connect that so that we can have a holistic solution to a disjointed, broken food system. We're talking about the consequences, not just of wasting food, but of feeding people in the traditional way with canned food, bagged food, the things we take out of our cupboards. We have an entire generation of kids growing up utilizing any kind of assistance they can find. And they're growing up with juvenile diabetes, heart disease, juvenile obesity. It's affecting their ability to learn. And for the folks who are just trying to access better, healthier, fresher food, and they can't make their paycheck go, their SNAP card stretch, they just need a little bit of extra help. And if you've ever needed just a little bit of extra help, you know it goes a really long way. So almost 5 years later, Lovin Spoonfuls has rescued and distributed over 1 million pounds of fresh, healthy food. We've fed just over 500,000 people, and we've legitimized a system for food rescue. This is how it works. We operate a small fleet of temperature-controlled vehicles, and we go under our partner umbrella from vendor to beneficiary. That's anywhere from supermarkets, farms, produce wholesalers, restaurants, bakeries. We do a direct distribution up into the social service stream. Organizations that are serving 2,500 meals a day, organizations that are serving 8 to 10 families at a time, and everything in between. Food is the most powerful tool for social justice that we've got. We can use it to unite and connect, or separate and divide. Food has changed the world, and it can continue to change the world. And that's where we step in. We can talk about repairing the world through food. Our model is sustainable. It's adaptable to any kind of geography, any region. We're growing throughout Massachusetts and then beyond. The idea that we can get food to folks who need it, it's just about picking things up and putting them down somewhere else. And what we said when we wrote it on the side of our trucks was that there is enough food out there, let's go get it. And the last stat that I'll leave you with is 15% less waste could feed over 25 million people. This is a problem that we can solve in our lifetime, and I think we can do it. Thanks.